Hey, everybody. So we are building our first lesson plan. We're getting started with the incorporation of education and technology into a bigger process as we go. So you've looked at SAMR, all right? You've looked at the process that SAMR takes us through. In 103, you're looking at hyperdocs and how to incorporate a hyperdoc or how to build a hyperdoc into a lesson plan and what that entails. But now we need to write a lesson plan, right? We need to look at what a lesson plan really is and how it works. So let's just take a couple minutes and think through this process. So when you're teaching, right, when you're preparing to teach students, you've got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? It's just like any other story or anything that goes on, and that's what you're trying to do. So you always want to think kind of about the end point of what you're trying to accomplish. All right. So for instance, right now I'm trying to teach you how to write a lesson plan. Right. I want to teach you what goes into a lesson plan. My end point is to get you to have a lesson plan. All right. That's my end point. That's my goal. So what goes into that? Well, I've got to have a beginning, right? I've got to explain to you why lesson plans are important. I've got to explain to you why we use them and how they're used. Then I've got to explain the portions of a lesson plan and what goes into an actual lesson plan. And then finally, we get to build one. So just like anything, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. So let's start with the beginning. Why do we write them? Well, let's just say this. It gets confusing if you don't, okay? Um, if you don't know what you're doing the whole time, if you don't know what process you're taking, then you jump around a lot and you really don't stay focused on what your end goal is. And let me give you a for instance. If you're creating a lesson plan on I'm going to do something that I know, all right, and then you guys can kind of hopefully relate to it. Let's say I'm going to talk about World War II, okay? If I don't have a lesson plan that goes through what started World War II, the actions of World War II, and how World War II ended, it would be very easy for me to start out on what caused World War II, um, start talking about the battles and things of World War II, and then kind of go off into the Holocaust, and then oh wait, we have the big three conferences at Potsdam and Yalta, and well, all right, now we got to talk about like women and children in World War II. Oh wait, let's talk about how. Pearl Harbor were so important, and then we can go into the War Times Act. And oh wait, what was I trying to get to? Oh, that's right, how it ended. All right. So you need to figure out that process. You've got to have a kind of a timeline of the things that you're doing. And that's really where a lesson plan comes in. Now, some of you have had lesson plan writing already in other classes. Some of you haven't. And that's why I really want to take the time to go over what we're doing and in this process of writing lesson plans. So, my lesson plans that I want you guys to write might be different than what you've seen other people or other teachers or other professors use. Okay. But I'm going to give you some ideas and some thoughts, and then you can really kind of do whatever you want as far as your template is concerned, as long as you get the basics of what I give you. I'm not going to be one of those professors that says you have to do it exactly my way. I can honestly tell you over my 20 some years of experience, I've probably used 10 different versions of lessons plans. Right now, I'm using a one from Google Sheets. I'm using a spreadsheet to do it. It just makes more sense for me at this time to do that. So, that's the basics of why we do it, is because it really gives us a template of where we're going and really shows where we've been. Also, we do it because administrators, and as the county, the state, they want to know what we've covered. Have we done all of our standards? Have we met our objectives? Have we taught the students everything that we're supposed to teach? So they're extremely important to do. Does that mean that I stick right to my lesson plan and I don't do anything else? No, I learned my lesson very young as a student teacher that writing them out verbatim is a bad idea, right? So when I was in college, we had to write them verbatim. I will say this, and then what I'm going to say, and I will say this, and this is what I'm going to say, and this is the answer I want from my students. And then so we had to verbatim write them out. And I'll never forget my first week of student teaching, I had my lesson plan sitting on my co-op's podium, and I'm reading. This is what I'm going to say, and I'm reading it. I'm staring at that, and he said to me after my second lesson, he said, why do you keep reading that thing? I said, that's my lesson plan. I have to stick to my lesson plan. That's what it is. And the third day, I got up in front of the class and I had my lesson plan there and it was all printed. And he said to me, you're going to write your stuff up on the board. And I said, oh, yeah, I got to put my stuff up. So I'm writing my objectives up on the board and stuff. And when I turned around and all my students are sitting there and I turned around, I went to read my lesson plan was gone. And I was like, oh my God, where'd it go? And he's sitting in the back of the room laughing. He's like, not today. Start teaching. And that's when I learned that lesson plans are that just that they're a plan. They're the hope of what you're going to accomplish. They don't always mean that you're going to get everything done that you want to. I can honestly tell you, some of my best lessons were not planned. Some of my best discussions that I've had with students, nowhere near planned. Something threw us off. Something in the world that happened, and we just boom, and the kids. They learned and they loved it. So sometimes your lesson plan is pushed aside and you do things. But our goal right now, so we've talked about why. Now let's talk about what goes into a lesson plan. And what I'm going to do is I am going to pull over our website here so that you can see what I'm looking at. Right? And I hope I didn't just screw everything up. I hope that actually maybe I did. Let me put that back over here, and let's take a look at what we got, right? And if I am screwing it up, then just look at the webpage and follow me along. So creating lesson plan, right? This is assignment number 1. This is in 102, right? You've watched your SAMR. And what are we looking at? So first of all, I'm going to open up a Google Doc. Oh, I don't want that one. So I'm going to use docs.new. I'm pulling new Google Doc out. All right. And the first thing that I would suggest that you do in every situation when you are teaching is you need to label it. You need to name it. You need to get an organizational scheme going. So right now we're just going to label this lesson 1. Actually, we'll name it lesson plan template because this is what you're going to use throughout the entire process. And that's what I want you guys to do. Now, notice I'm trying to talk to you here, but I'm also looking over here because this is where my other screen is. And it's easier for me to kind of bounce back and forth this way so I can see what I'm working on, right? So when we're talking about our template, right, we need to organize it, all right? The next thing that I would put in is a date. And the reason I would put a date in, let's see, Thursday is February 11th, 2021. All right. And I'm just going to throw that in there, right? And the reason is because when you are writing your lesson plans, when you're going through your teaching, you can look for things based upon either words inside of the document or the title of the document. So if I was looking particularly for this document, I could type in February 11th, 2021. And it would find that document for me. Or I could type in lesson plan template and it would find that document for me. So actually, I'm going to leave this blank because I'm forgetting that it is a template. So we're going to put the date, right? That's an important factor in this. All right, now, standards. Standards are a very big deal, right? And I have linked on here your standards for for New Jersey, okay? And here they are, right? You have your standards are written very nicely for you. If you come down here, you see English, math, science, social studies, technology. I'm just going to click on social studies because I want to give you a view of what's going to happen. So when you click on there, all right, it's going to say like what kind of things do you look for? What kind of items are you looking for? So we are using the 2020 student learning standards. So we're going to click on that webpage, right? Now, what are we doing? What is going on? What do we want to use? Now, again, this is how crazy things are. Look where we are. We're kind of bouncing around here from place to place because everything is just kind of jumbled. And I don't really understand the process that Department of Education uses. But I'm going to click on social studies again. And now I come to my standards, right? This is a big process. I don't really understand why it takes you a roundabout way. But we're going to skip the first couple pages, all right? Now, this is important because this tells you what you need to accomplish at certain points. So, if you're a second grade teacher, first grade kindergarten, you need to focus on these. By the end of second grade, you will be doing these. By the end of fifth grade, you'll be doing these. By the end of eighth grade, by the end of 12th grade, right? When you drop down a little bit, so this is civics, government, and human rights, civic and political institutions, right? So that's what you need to cover. Drop down a little bit more, all right, participation and deliberation. By the end of second grade, fifth grade, eighth grade, 12th grade. We didn't even get to standards yet, so don't fret. Democratic principles, all right, processes and rules, and it just goes, these are all the things that you've got to accomplish. All right, and we're going to just keep bouncing and bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, and we're going to keep looking. My screen bounces out on its own once in a while. So, all right, so now we're going to keep coming down. These are all the things that we've got to cover. Now, what is this? Social studies practices, right? Developing questions, gathering, evaluating sources. We're not even in the standards area yet. All right, now we're getting to some standards. All right, now we're starting to look at what is going on. So here we go. All right, core ideas, performance expectations. Right. So let me explain to you the number system. Now, this is in social studies. We don't have enough time to go over English, math, everything, but I'm going to show you the basis of what we're talking about. So this is civics and political institutions. This is by the end of second grade. Notice 6.1.2. That 2 means second grade. All right. When you come down a little bit further, let me see if I can get to the next area. See, again, still second grade, 6.1.2. 6.1.2, 6.1.5 by the end of fifth grade, right? 6.1.5. All right, so everything is kind of set up for you, all right, in this situation. Now, you have to start taking standards. You've got to cover all your standards by the end of second grade. Listen, sometimes kindergarten key teachers will cover it, sometimes first grade, sometimes second grade. It really depends on, on the platform that your school uses. But when you're writing standards, you really, let me jump back to our discussion here. You only want to use 2 to 3 per lesson. All right. We are not going to cover, we are not going to cover all 5 of these, actually 6 of these, in one day. It can't happen, especially second graders, right? Second graders, 10, 15 minutes into something, and they're already like, woo, what's going on, right? So you've got to really pick and choose the ones that you're going to do. And when you do that, you really have to think. We go back to the order of our lesson plans. You got to think about what comes first, what comes second, what comes third. All right. And that really depends on what is going on with your standards, what is going on with what you have to cover. And you've got to start thinking about that process of how you're making all of this work. Now, history, math, English, a lot of it goes in linear form, right? You have to be able to add and subtract before you can divide and multiply. All right. You have to be able to know what caused an event before you can get to the event in American history, right? You have to know how to spell before you can write a sentence. So there is some linear ways to go about things, but at the same time, you really need to focus on these standards. So when you're looking for your standards, play around with this website, with this New Jersey website. And again, I have it listed right here for you. Play around with it. Look around. If you have questions, please let me know, and I'll see if I can't guide you in a little bit better of a way of doing things. But it is a little confusing, and that's why I suggest don't wait till Wednesday at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon to try and play with it. Play with it a little while. If you're already in a classroom, talk to your teacher and see, if they can give you a little basics of what it is. So that's standards. And again, you're only picking 1 to 2, right? I'm not looking for you to do, 10 in one day, because it's not going to happen. I teach high school kids, and I can tell you right now, more than 2, we start to lose it. All right, we got to stay focused. All right, objectives. So let's go back to our standards. We have our date, right? So now I'm going to put standards. All right. That comes next. And I can get rid of this tab. We don't need it anymore, right? Standards is next. Next, objectives. All right. Again, 2 or 3 per lesson plan, not 10, not 20, 2 or 3. So I'm going to put objectives here, right? And this used to be what we called student will be able to. All right, SWBAT. All right, students will be able to do this by the end of our lesson, right? But we use action words. And if you click here, Webb's Depth of Knowledge, all right, it's going to come up as a download. It was just easier to do it that way. But these are all, and if you don't like mine, you can definitely go and search it up, Webb's Depth of Knowledge. But define, so you have different levels. Level 1 is your lowest level. All right, that's your multiple choice. That's your recall kind of area. Really, that's kind of like the quick hit or miss, just to check on kind of things. But name this, list this, memorization, right? Those are level 1. Level 2 starts to get a little graph things, compare something, summarize, predict what's going to happen. That's a level 2. A little bit higher of a skill. But notice these are all action words, right? Match, infer, predict, estimate. They're all action words, and that's what we're going to use in our objectives. Level 3, right? Develop an argument, explain, investigate, critique, hypothesize, differentiate. Again, all action words, but we're stepping up our levels. We're stepping up where we are. We call it rigor, right? How rigorous something is, right? My principal loves that. He's rigor. He loves that. All right. And then level 4 is even bigger. Now, this is more of your project areas, like design something. All right. Analyze something. Prove a situation. Create a project, right? So again, number 4 is going beyond. And if you look at the side, all right, recall and reproduction is 1, basic skills and concepts is 2, strategic thinking and reasoning, and then extended thinking. So you want to have, like, again, 2 tops, 3 objectives using action words. All right. We used to have, again, it used to be SWBAT. Students will be able to critique the following. Students will be able to estimate the following. Everybody's kind of gotten away from that, but that's the idea. What are we trying to get our students to accomplish? All right, so that's a link right here for you. So we have our objectives next, right? And again, that's an action word. Now, procedure. So I'm going to add procedure here. All right, now procedure is a multitude of things, right? This is your lesson. This is what you're doing. Notice these first couple things: date, standards, objectives. That's kind of like the behind the scenes items, right? These are things that you have to have, but your students are never really going to be too focused on that. Most administrators want your objectives on the board, but still, they're not doing anything with it. The students are going to see it and they're going to go, "Wow, that's what we're doing. Okay, I got it." But your procedure is now. This is what your students are going to accomplish in this period. This is what I want my kids and my students to accomplish. So what do we have here? So do now, right? I'm just going to tab in a little bit. Do now, right? This is an introduction. Well, I can't spell intro, review, kind of a quick thoughts. All right, these are all things that you can do to get them in. So I like to use do nows. I don't use them so much right now online, and simply because I'm already in class with them. My computer is taking attendance for me, so I don't have to take time to do that. I don't have to be in the hall watching other students passing classes and stuff. I'm already in class, so my do nows very limited online. But when I'm in school, I have to stay in the hallway and watch the kids passing classes, make sure there's no issues, right? I've got to take attendance to make sure all of my students are here and that, we're all accounted for. So that takes about 5 minutes. That's a good 5 minutes chunk of time that the students need to kind of get in their seats, get focused, get ready for class, get their Chromebooks open, get their notebooks open, whatever they're doing. So these are things that I use, like a review from the day before. What did you guys think about what we talked about yesterday? I might find something on the news from last night. Oh, did you guys see this? What did you think about it? Here's a link to it. We're going to add this into our lesson today. I try and get something so that they're kind of focused on what we're going to be doing. All right. And It's usually graded for me. I usually stay focused on that because I want them to know there's an importance to it. And I always come back to it at some point in my lesson to give it some worth, right? I don't want it to just be a time filler. But in reality, for me, it does help a lot because they're focused on something so I can get like my administrative paperwork kind of things done, right? So that's your do now. That's the beginning of what you're working on. Next, if we come down, right, what is the meat of the class? All right, and I guess I don't know. We've always just called it the meat, but it's like what are we doing in class? So the class, I don't want to call it meat here, but the class actions. Like what are we doing? What is your? Are you lecturing? All right. Are they watching a movie? Are they discussing some kind of think, pair, share kind of thing? Are they going to do a hyperdoc like you're going to do this week? Are they going to build something? Are they creating something? What are they doing for 90% of this class to get your objective met? What is going on with them? And this usually, I have about an hour class right now online. So again, I really don't do very much with the do now. We usually talk for a couple minutes, kind of get them focused, but there's not a lot of do now. But we're talking usually 50 to 55 minutes of something that we're doing, right? And it doesn't have to be, well, they're going to start with this and they're going to end with the same exact thing. Absolutely not, right? There are times that I start with a quick lecture. All right, listen, guys, we're going to talk about this for the next 10, 15 minutes. All right, we're done now. Now let's work on this worksheet together so we can talk about it as we go. All right, we're done that. Let's look at this video because it's going to show. I bounce around. Kids need that bounce around, right? They need to keep thinking. So your class actions, right? This can be um, um, all of the activities you will do to meet objectives. All right, now you won't be writing that on your lesson plans, but I'm just putting it there as a reminder for you guys to see as we're talking, right? This is everything that you're going to do in class. And again, there are times that I would lecture for an hour, right? I mean, with you guys, I talk a lot. I feel bad for you guys because I do have to talk a lot, but sometimes that has to happen. You got to get the information. But a lot of times they're building stuff, creating stuff, going here, going there. They use hyperdocs sometimes to get them moving. So, what is the class actions that you're using? What is the meat of our lesson? Okay. Next, how are we concluding? Right. This is some kind of exit ticket, assessment, something that lets you know that they got what they're doing. They got the point of the lesson. All right. I'll tell you right now, and again, we're in an odd situation, right? We're not in school. I always wrap up class with a quick, "Hey guys, listen, awesome job today, good work, I loved it." We had like I commented with you all class on some of the things that you're doing that I liked and some of the things that need some work. So awesome job, I love it. Sometimes that's my conclusion because during class, I've had so many comments and discussions with individuals as they're working that there isn't much for me to say. I know they've got it in those conversations that I've had with them during class, right? I might, jump on a chat and be like, "Hey, I noticed you." I'll give you a great, for instance, right? One of my students, it's Black History Month. It's February, right? So they are doing a infomercial on someone of importance in Black history, but they're not allowed to use anybody that has already really been discussed big in the civil rights era. So like Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, they're not allowed to use, but they can use other famous people. So one of my students wanted to do Muhammad Ali. And listen, Muhammad Ali is a phenomenal person to use, right? But I said to him, you can't talk about boxing. So we went on and we had back and forth right through the hour chats about like what are some of the important things, and he knew a lot. He loves Muhammad Ali, right? So we had lots of discussions about his change to Islam. There's a conversion to Islam, right? Issues with the Vietnam War, losing his ability to box for a while because of certain things. So we had that discussion at the end of class. I didn't need to say to him, "What did you learn today?" I knew what he learned. I knew what we were talking about. We had a great experience in that. So your conclusion when you're in person, can also be that same kind of thing. Like, what did you get out of today? Shoot me a little email, discuss it with me. Let's talk. I love those. Sometimes an exit ticket is awesome. And I'm going to ask you to actually create some kind of closure in all of this, right? I don't want you to say, well, I talk to people. I want you guys to create something, but I also want you to know that sometimes that is the best closure. At the end of that conversation with him, I said, yo, actually a little bit more about Muhammad Ali than I do. I learned something today, and I really appreciate the time that you took to have that discussion with me. And he was like, awesome, that's great. So we closed that discussion out. That was our closure of class. So kind of think about those kind of things. But for the lessons that we write in the next couple of weeks, I want a physical closure. I want to see some kind of exit ticket or some kind of creation. Okay. All right, let's go back. So what is next? Next is a differentiation. All right. How are you going to make sure that everyone in your class, everyone learns? All right. So let's put that next. That's our differentiation. All right. How will everyone learn? Now, in some instances, you need to make a totally different lesson, totally different quiz. We're going to do that. We will later on. I'm going to show you. We're going to specifically take one lesson and differentiate the whole thing so you get how technology can really help you with that. But in my world, right now, I have an in-class support teacher, okay? An ICS, right? In-class support. She will take the quizzes that I make and alter them. So let's say it's a 4-question multiple choice. She might knock it down to like 2 or 3. All right, because some kids just they can't look at 4 answers and do it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that at all, right? But you have to be able to modify, and you have to be able to think about, how am I going to make sure that every kid gets it? And really, what is the difference between 4 answers and 3 answers? In my mind, it's nothing. What's the big deal? In their mind, it's a big deal, right? Because that's huge. But in my mind as a teacher, I'm like, what does it matter if I get 4 or 3? Just as long as the student knows what the right answer is, I don't care how many you give them. So you differentiate and you create, and you learn to adapt your lessons to make sure everybody gets it, and everybody can understand it. We have differentiation now with electronics, right? I have students that can't use a Chromebook; they have to have an iPad. Right, it's easier for them, right? They can't do the keyboard, but they can use the iPad. So I have to change some things up. Reading things. Sometimes instead of giving them and again, I have juniors, a 4-page thing that they have to read, I will go through and break out sections and, okay, listen, you read these 5, paragraphs, and that actually kind of sums everything else up. So there, you have to learn how to differentiate, and you really want to put that into your lesson plans. And the reason you want to put that in there, because you want the administration, you want the students and the parents to see, oh, I do take my time. I do make sure every kid is included. Sometimes that means that you have to write 30 different tests because you have 30 different kids, right? If I have a class of special education students and there's 10 of them in there, I might have to write 10 different tests, right? So you always have to kind of think about what goes in. Now, I will admit, over 22 years, I've learned how to try and differentiate so that everybody gets the same exact thing. Special education students, regular education students, I've tried to make it so that when all is said and done, I meet everyone's IEPs and I can still get across to the average student what I needed to get across. Okay, it comes with practice, but you have to differentiate, guys, and girls, you have to make sure that you understand how to do that. And we will go through it, but I want you to think about it when you're writing these lessons. All right, materials is next. What will we need, right? What do we need? Are there hyperlinks that you need to put in? Do they need computers? Do they need textbooks? Do they need reading books? Do they need notebooks, crayons, paper, pencil? What do they need? What resources? And you want to know why you want to put that in? That is for you specifically, right? Because as a teacher, I love to be able to look down and say, okay, what am I going to need for third period today? And it's right there. They need this hyperlink. They need this. And it's all right, I'm done. I've got it. All right. I need to get paper and pencils ready for third period. get them out. Instead of reading through my whole lesson plan going, all right, we don't need that, we need that. All right, that's what we got. It makes it easier, right? Does every administration require that? Nope. It's just something that I prefer you put in so that you get used to it, and that we have it in there. So materials is one that I think that you should put in. Next, since this is a tech class, right? What's the tech integration? All right. Sometimes that could be as simple as we're like for this lesson, your first lesson, we're going to use a hyperdoc. All right. It could be as simple as we're using a hyperdoc today, which allows us to link to multiple websites and give them the ability to do some research based on their findings. Perfect. Would I just put hyperdoc? No. And I'll tell you why. If I put hyperdoc on my lesson plans, my administrator would email me back and go, I have no idea what that is. Please tell me what's going on. Explain a little bit. All right. Technology, we're going to use a slideshow in our procedures to do the following. Okay. All right. Explain a little bit. It seems redundant. It does. And I get that. But at the same time, when people are checking your lesson plans, when the county is checking your lesson plans, you want the redundancy because they're going to say, well, I didn't see any technology integration in there. All right, well, if you look at my technology integration portion, you're going to see I said up in the procedure, this is where I did it. And you'd be surprised how many times that happens. All right, I've been emailed several times by my superintendent saying, hey, we're looking over lesson plans and we haven't seen you use technology in this area. I mean, she knows that I do. And I'm like, you're right. I completely forgot to add that line in. Just do it. Take some time. Explain what you're doing, right? You don't have to rewrite the whole procedure, but hey, up in the procedure line, we talked about using slides. That's the item that I'm going to use. All right. And then finally, the assessment. All right. Now, this is your exit ticket. Class discussion. All right. Whatever it may be. How are you, right? It goes back up to your conclusion. All right. How are you assessing them? Okay. Your conclusion and your assessment may be the same. It also could be test at the end of the week. Quiz tomorrow on this. All right. What is it? How are you going to assess them? How are you going to make sure that they're getting this done? And it doesn't have to be a test. It can be a project, right? But assess them, all right? And make sure that they understand what's going on. The best example I can give right now is I have an AP microeconomics class, right? These students have never had economics before in their life. They are lost. I mean, lost, right? No idea what's going on. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going back and we're re-hitting some things and I'm telling them, all right, this will be on the test. This is what you're going to do to show me you understand it. Here's how we're going to, I'm breaking it down into more simple language for them. And that's important because when you're assessing students, if they don't know what's expected, you're lying to them, right? I can remember being a kid. I hated this even in college. You're having a test on Unit 1 on Friday. Go. But dude, Unit 1 has been for the last 5 weeks. Could be anything, absolutely anything. Like what am I going to do? I always listen. These are the 6 topics we're going to cover. These are the type of questions you're going to have. These are some possible practice items that you can use. I make sure they understand their assessments. All right. Now, some teachers, and I can guarantee, and I know some at my school, well, that's kind of just giving them that's giving them the answers. No, it's not. I don't give them the exact numbers in the problem. I don't give them the exact essay question, but I want them to understand what process is going to happen. All right. Nothing is worse than a student having to take a test, not knowing what is expected. And not to be funny, think about this. Once you're done college, when are you going to ever take a test that you don't know beforehand what's on it? All right. I used to have a professor in college. His name was Dr. Leon Miller, philosophy professor. Right? Don't ask me why I took philosophy, but he used to, we had, actually, if I remember, I took it for philosophy and logic. All right. We had a philosophy class. We went in to take our first test and he said, okay, use your books, go. We all looked at each other. We're like, we're allowed to use our books? He's like, yes. And I thought to myself, well, oh, this is going to be great. I love it, right? And one of the kids said, why do you let us use our books? And here was his answer. And this stuck with me through my entire teaching career. If you were on the table and you needed brain surgery, would you want the doctor to guess or look it up? And I was like, man, I'd want him to look it up. He's like, why? Why? We give you these tools. You don't need to memorize the whole world. It's at your fingertips. Use them. So that's kind of what I do now, right? My thought process in my assessments and stuff is a lot less multiple choice testing and a lot more real world. What would you do with this kind of stuff? All right. So think of your assessments, and each lesson should have an assessment. So, excuse me. Let's go back. What is your assignment this week? Now make a copy of this. All right. File. Make a copy. Now let's call this lesson plan 1. And let's make sure this goes into the folder that is assigned to me, right? So that this is your class folder. All right. Now, you can use any format that you want. All right. If you want to put tables in here and put everything in a table, that's fine. If you want to color code it, I don't care. If you want to use it on a spreadsheet, knock yourself out. But whatever it is, I want you to use that same template for the next couple weeks. All right, because I want to be able to easily see where you go. So what is your assignment this week? Well, you have your HyperDoc that you're building in 103. Okay, so if you haven't watched that yet, before you start this assignment, jump over and check out the HyperDoc. All right? All right, good, you're back. So what I want you to do is your procedure, your class action is going to be your HyperDoc. Oh, I spelled it wrong again. All right, and I want you to hyperlink to your HyperDoc, right? I want you to hyperlink it so that's where I'm going to grade you on your HyperDoc. I want to open your lesson plan. I want to click on it. I want to go to a HyperDoc, and I want it to be there, right? You don't have to turn it into a classroom. You turn it in right on as a hyperlink. And if you don't know how to do the hyperlink, make sure you watch the Google scavenger hunt, Google Docs scavenger hunt, and do that, all right? Learn how to do it. But what do I want this week? So I used to make students do a unit, and I would say, okay, build a unit, find one topic and stick to it. But every week, and I've learned this over time, every week I create new technology ideas to throw at you and kind of force you to kind of work into. And sometimes what I want you to do doesn't work with the theme that you're doing. So what I've decided this semester is I want you to do whatever you want. All right. And what that means is, listen, if you're high school history, pick any history topic that you want, high school, and create the HyperDoc and the lesson plan based on that topic. Okay? If you're doing second grade, math, English, science, whatever you want it to be, create a lesson plan. But here's the thing. I want you to find the standards. I want them in there. I want your objectives written out. I want your procedure. I want you to make the introduction. All right? Whatever the do now is, create one. Whatever your class actions are, which is your HyperDoc. You're building the HyperDoc. All right. Conclusion. What is your exit ticket? Okay. Differentiation. You don't have to build the differentiation. I'm going to let you go for a little while on that one because I want to talk a lot more about it. But how could you make it a little easier for some students that might have problems? All right. So think about that. And it could be as simple as on the HyperDoc, I'm going to leave off this part because it gets a little tricky. We're on the HyperDoc where I have them do this. We're going to meet as a small group and do. It could be very simplistic, but I want you to start thinking about how to differentiate. Materials. What materials do they need? What materials are going to have them use? Internet, Chromebooks, computers, those kind of things. What do they need? Okay. Tech integration. How are you integrating technology? And I know you're going to say, I'm using a HyperDoc. Absolutely. But what else are you doing? What is that? How is that HyperDoc technology? Right? It's a Google Doc. It's a piece of paper. It's not technology. Talk about how you're using that to send them places to integrate a bigger technological idea. And then assessment. I don't want you to create a test. I don't want you to create a quiz or anything like that. Right now, just create a little exit ticket. What is the exit ticket for this? All right. And that's what your assignment is for this part. Now, so far in this week, you have the Google Doc's scavenger hunt, right? You have a hyper doc to create, you have a lesson plan to do, so you have some things to do. Okay. And I know, and it's been in past years, I've had students that are like, we have so much work to do. Listen, I do 6 of these a day, 5 days a week. So that means I do 30 of these a week, building every single aspect. If you think one in a week is too much, you are in the wrong field for your future, okay? Because honestly, there are times that I actually write 30 to 35 because things get changed up and I got to change stuff. So just understand that I don't think one a week is all that hard. All right. But it's getting you to start thinking about creating some of these things, and that's important. All right. Make sure you hit me up if you have questions. Make sure you rewatch these as you need to. Hopefully, I'll see some of you guys in class on Thursday. And it's once again, just have a great week, everybody. Thanks for coming in. I'll see you later.